So in this step, we're going to be focused on the feed, and we're going to be adding the feed to our layout. But remember that we only want the feed to be displayed at the root URL, because later in the application when we add the filter, we're going to be changing the content displayed here based on the route. So we want to create the feed, add it to the layout, and register it with the router. So the first thing we need to do is create our feed component, and I'm going to use the CLI again to do that. So I'm going to say lore generate component feed and hit enter, and that will create our feed component. Next, I'm going to replace this empty div tag with a snippet to fill in some of the JSX, and I'm going to replace this part here that says feed title. I'm going to replace that with feed so that we can actually see something on screen when it renders. In this component, you'll notice that I've also have some inline styles that we're using, and so I'm going to need to include those. So I'm going to delete prop types, and I'm going to create a function called getStyles. I'm going to have this return an object. So I'm going to paste in the snippet for the styles. So we have title and tweet styles, and then I'm going to pull those in at the top of our render method. Right, so now we've got our styles, and we can use them to style our feed. Right, so I'm going to save that. So now we've created our component. So the next step is we need to register it with the router. So to do that, we're going to open up routes.js, and we're going to start by pulling in our feed. So I'm going to say var feed equals require /source components feed, and we want that to be a child of the layout. So we want to say we're going to render the feed inside the layout in the middle of our page here at the root URL. So to do that, we need to open up this route, and we need to create a route underneath it. And so we're going to say route, and we need to say the component, and this is going to be our feed. And then we're going to close it. But in this case, we're not going to use just a normal route. We're going to use another type of route called an index route. And this is a special route that means render this component automatically at the root URL. So we don't need to have special rules. This is the way that we associate feed with the layout by default at the index. So next we need to pull in this index route. So I'm going to copy the route line, and then we're going to pull index route out of React router. All right, so now if I save that and we refresh the page, you'll notice that it still loads, but we don't actually see our feed, right? We should see a feed title here in the middle of the page at the top. And the reason for that is even though we registered our feed as a child of this layout route, layout doesn't know where to render its children. So we're going to go into source components, and we're going to open layout. And this part here that's commented out says feed goes here. I'm going to replace that with a statement. And this is going to be react.cloneElement this.props.children. And what this means is this.props.children is going to be our child route. So here feed is a child of layout. So we're getting our children that were passed into us, that were given to us by React Router, and then we're going to clone them, and we're going to render them in the middle of this column. And so now if I save that, and we refresh the page, we can see there's our feed, right? And so that's pretty cool. So now our feed will render at the root URL, but we have the ability to replace what's rendered there later on in our application.